Welcome to Preeminent Test Prep. Today's day 38 in our 90-day SAT prep series. Today we're going to be spending about 20 minutes with the SAT math section and then about 25 minutes with the SAT writing section. So I've scored 1590 on the SAT. I've scored a perfect 800 on the math section on back-to-back SAT tests, and I've also scored perfectly on the writing section on back-to-back SAT tests. So with that, today we'll be going through problems 31 through 38 of the Math with Calculator section from SAT Practice Test 3. I know it says a 1 up here. I'll go ahead and put the arrow pointing to that. Okay, that's just because I made a copy of it. Okay, this is SAT Practice Test 3. Okay, we're going to be doing problems 31 through 38 of the Math with Calculator section. I'll be giving you my tips, tricks, advice, strategies, all that good stuff for this free response part of the SAT Math with Calculator. After that, I will switch over to the SAT writing section where I'll be giving you my advice, tips, tricks, strategies for the SAT writing section as well. So that'll be about 25 minutes. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let's take a look at 31. So one thing you should know about the SAT Math with Calculator section is it's going to get progressively harder as you go from 31 to 38 because that's where the fill in the blank or bubble sheet part really starts. So 31 through 34 are probably going to be pretty simple. So we've got tickets for a school talent show, cost $2 for students and $3 for adults. If Chris spends at least $11 but no more than $14 on X student tickets and one adult ticket, what is one possible value of X? Well, if he's getting one adult ticket, we know adult tickets are $3, and he's spending between 11 and 14, so anywhere from 11 to 14. Okay, I'm going to pick that he spends 13. Okay, I get to pick here, so any number between 11 and 14. Including 11 or 14. I'm going to pick 13. Why? Because he's spending he's getting one adult ticket that costs $3. Okay, so I take that 13 minus that 3. Now I'm left with $10, and I know it costs $2 per student. So how many student tickets X is he going to get? Well, I divide each side by 2 then. 10 over 2 gives me 5. Okay, so 5 would be my answer. Now another acceptable answer would be 4. Okay, because he can spend $11, you could have done 11 minus 3. And that would have gotten you 8, and then done 8 over 2 and gotten 4. So 4 is also an acceptable answer. In this case, I wanted to keep, I just picked 13 because 13 minus 3 gave me 10. That was an even number. Even number over 2 was going to give me an even number. So either way, whether you picked to start with 11 or 13, you're still going to end with either 5 or 4. Either of those would be correct answers. So this one right here, not too bad, right? You're asked to answer with one possible value. In this case, it could have been 5 or 4. 31, pretty easy there. Now we've got 32. Ages of the first 12 United States presidents at the beginning of their terms in office. Okay, so I've got a data table there. The table above is listing the ages of the first 12 United States presidents when they began their terms in office. According to the table, what was the mean age, which also means average. Okay, the mean just means the average age in years of these presidents at the beginning of their terms. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. All right, so with this one, what we got to do is we got to find the average. So to do that, we're going to add up all of these ages in both of these columns, and then we're going to divide by the total number of presidents, which in this case we see is going to be that we have 6 rows and we have 2 columns, so that would be 6 times 2, 12. Okay, so we're going to have to divide by 12, whatever our sum is, because there are 6 presidents in each column and there are 2 columns. So 6 times 2 gives me that 12 for my denominator. So there is a trick to adding these, right? Obviously, you're going to have to use your calculator here. That's going to be the best way to do it. Doing that in your head is a terrible idea. Okay, we're going to want to do this using a calculator. So here's what I'm going to put in my calculator. I'm going to put in 57 plus 62 plus 58 times 3, because I see I have 2 58s here and I have 1 here. So that saves me time because I don't have to put in plus 58, plus 58, and plus 58. I put in plus 58 times 3 instead. Okay, so I'm going to show right here what I'm putting in my calculator. I got 57 plus 62 plus 58 times 3 plus 59, okay, because I got 59 right here. And then I've got plus 62 plus 55 plus 68 plus 51 plus 50 and plus 65. Okay, so that covers all my presidents then. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of those up and then divide by 12. Okay, so I put all of that over the 12 presidents. Now when I do that, what I'm going to get for my answer there is going to be 58.6. Okay, 58.6 when I round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so I put that in my calculator. When I round to the nearest tenth, that's going to give me that 58.6. Okay, In my calculator, I got that as 58.5833 repeating, so obviously 58.583 is going to round to 58.6 when we round to that nearest tenth. So answer there is going to be that 58.6. So as far as the tips for this one, to save time, what I would recommend doing is if you see that you have 3 58s like this, or any numbers that are back to back, instead of adding them both, I would just put that 58 times 3. So that's one way I would save time there. But overall, that's just going to be one you're going to have to put in your calculator. That's really the shortest way to do it, the quickest way to do it, and that's the best way to do it. So that's how we're going to do it. That's how we got to do it. So now that was question 32, it looks like. So yep, that one right there is going to be 58.6. Okay, now we got question 33. All right, so I've got some equations up here and the expression above. If it's rewritten in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants, what's the value of b? In this case, I'm just solving for the coefficient in front of my x, okay? So that means I don't care about my x squared term. So I don't care about this negative 2 times x squared. I only care about this plus 5x and then this negative 2 times that negative 2x. Now negative 2 times negative 2 will give me positive 4x, okay? Negative 2 times negative 2x gives me positive 4x, and then I already got 5x. 4x plus 5x, that's going to give me 9x. I'm asked for my b term, so that b then will be 9. So answer for 33 is going to be 9, okay? That one right there, all you got to understand is that we are only caring about our x term, right, that coefficient in front of it, so we aren't even going to worry about the other terms. Okay, we ignore them because otherwise we're wasting our time with them because we don't get points for doing anything with them. If we don't get points for doing something, we're not going to do it unless it's working to get us to our correct answer. Okay, so then we take this negative 2, we just got to make sure we remember to apply it to this 2x to give that a positive 4x, okay? So that one right there, pretty simple. The big thing there is just making sure you're not wasting time dealing with the x squared terms or with those constants, okay? So that's the big thing there. All right, question 34. We've got in a circle with center O, central angle AOB has a measure of 5 pi over 4 radians. The area of the sector formed by central angle AOB is what fraction of the area of a circle? All right, so if you didn't get this intuitively, then what you're going to want to do, anytime that you don't get a geometry question intuitively, is you're going to want to draw the shape, right? So in this case, we have a center O, we have an angle AOB, so AO, we'll call this B, right? We know that it's 5 pi over 4 radians is the central angle there. We're asked for the area of the sector of the central angle formed by AOB, is what fraction of the area of the circle. Well, that's going to be the same fraction as this right here, this angle is out of 360 degrees, right? But we know we're dealing in radians, so it's going to be that 5 pi over 4 radians we have divided by the 2 pi radians in a circle, okay? So if we're going to divide like that, the way that we can rewrite that is we can rewrite it as multiplying by 1 over that 2 pi, because there's 2 pi radians in each circle. So at that point, we go ahead and cancel our pi's, okay, and we're going to have then 5 over that 4 times 2, which is 8. So our answer there would be 5 over 8, okay? So the big thing to understand there is that the fraction of this area of the circle versus, the fraction of this area of this sector, right, and I'll go ahead and shade it in blue, okay? The fraction of this sector right here out of the whole area of the circle is going to be the same as the fraction of that angle out of the whole circle's angle, okay? We know the whole circle angle in radians is 2 pi, okay? 360 degrees is the same as 2 pi. So then what we do is we go ahead and we put our central angle AOB, which we know is 5 pi over 4. We put that on top. We divide it by 2 pi, which is the same as multiplying by 1 over 2 pi, okay? And then we just simplify, and we get 5 over 8 there. So just understanding the geometry there, that's all you really got to know. It's just understanding the geometry of a circle and how those things relate. All right, 35. An online store receives customer satisfaction ratings between 0 and 100 inclusive. In the first 10 ratings the store received, the average arithmetic mean of the ratings was 75. What is the least value the store can receive for the 11th rating and still be able to have an average of at least 85 for the first 20 ratings? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that 85 that I need for those first 20 ratings. So I'm going to multiply 85 as the score times 20. So when I plug that in my calculator, I believe that gets me 1700. I'll just double check that with my calculator. So 85 times 20, that's going to give me 1700. Okay, so I got 1700 there. Now what do I know? Well, I know my first 10 ratings, right? So the first 10 of those 20, their average is 75. So what I can do is I can take that 1700 and I'm going to subtract That's 75 times 10, okay, because I know that I have those ratings already. So I'll go ahead and plug that in my calculator. All right, I plug that in, and that's going to give me 950. Okay, so I got 950 points that I still need. So I still need 950 points because I had 750 from those first 10 reviews, but I still need 950 from my last 10, okay? So I'm asked for the least value I can have for my 11th rating and still get that 85, okay? So my least value for my 11th would be if I have the most for my other 9, okay? The most I can get is 100. So if I have 100 for my other 9 and I need a total of 950, okay, then I need to have my score, we'll call that score X, okay? I have score X for my 11th score, plus the maximum I can have for my other 9 scores, and that's got to add up to that 950, okay? So that's going to give us X plus 900 equals that 950. So at that point, we go ahead and we subtract 900 from each side, and we get 950 minus 900. That gives us 50 as our 11th rating. So our answer there is going to be 50. Okay, so that one right there, the real key there is understanding that you're going to take your ratings, okay, the number of ratings you have and that average rating score you need, and multiply them to get the total number of points or ratings you're going to need, right? The total number of points. So in this case, that's 1,700. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the points you already have, which are your 10 ratings times 75, and you're going to remove them from that 1,700. So that leaves you with that 950. And then it's understanding that the least value of your 11th is correlated with the largest value of your other 9. So the largest value of your other 9 are going to be that 100 times 9, and then you use that to solve for your lowest value you could have for your 11th. Okay, so the answer there is going to be that, or I'm sorry, the answer there is going to be that 50, right? So the answer there is 50. All right, so now we've got question 36, I believe. We got that right over here. So in the xy plane, if a point with coordinates a, b lies in the solution set of the system of inequalities above, what's the maximum possible value of b? All right, well, I see that in both of these, I have y must be less than or equal to some number with x, right? In this case, up top, we also have an intercept. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plug this 5x in right here, okay? So I take that 5x since it can be equal to y, and I plug it in for y over here. So now I've got 5x must be less than or equal to negative 15x plus 3,000. So and then at that point, I'm going to add 15x to each side. I do that so that way I keep my coefficient in front of x positive. Okay, that's going to give me 20x. So now I've got 20x must be less than or equal to 3,000. At that point, I divide each side by 20 to solve for x, but keep in mind, I need to solve for b. Solving for x here is giving me a, but I'm going to need to use that a to solve for b. So once again, making sure we're paying very, very close attention to what we're asked in this problem. Okay, always pay attention to that end, the end question there, what you have to answer for the value of. That's always very important. Okay, so we're going to take that, we divide by 20. So we got 3,000 over 20. 3,000 over 20, plug that in my calculator. I believe that that's going to be 150, but let's go ahead and check out. 3,000 over 20. And that's going to give me 150. Yep, so I've got 150 equals x. Okay, is 150 my answer? No, it is not. Okay, 150 is a, so a is 150, but we need to solve for b. Okay, so always paying attention to that. So now we take that and we plug that in for x. Okay, why am I picking this bottom equation and not the top equation here? Okay, I don't pick this top equation because then I have to plug it in, multiply by negative 15, and add 3,000. That's more steps than if I just do 5 times 150. Okay, I always want to do the least amount of steps. Okay, so in this case, that's 5 times 150. So 5 times 150, and that's going to give me 750. I can quick double check that with my calculator, and that is correct. Okay, 750 will be my answer there. That's the maximum value of b. So the big things here that could have tripped you up were if you were to not pay attention to what your question was asking at the end, that could have tripped you up. The other thing would be yeah, that's really it. Basically, it's testing to make sure you're not answering with A. That's really the big thing here, okay? Because otherwise, the math isn't too difficult as long as you pay attention to what you have to answer with. So that's really what it was making sure that you were able to do there. All right, so now we've got question 37, it looks like. And it's looking like we'll probably end in around 20 minutes today, is what it's looking like. Or with the math part, and then we'll switch over to the other part. But for the math will probably only take 20 minutes today. So if shoppers enter a store at an average rate of R shoppers per minute, okay, that's important, it's per minute, each stays in the store for an average time of T minutes, so that's good, so that's the same units, no converting we need to do there. The average number of shoppers in the store N at any one time is given by the formula N equals RT. This relationship is known as Little's Law. The owner of the Good Deals store estimates that during business hours, an average of 3 shoppers per minute enter the store and that they stay an average of 15 minutes. The store owner uses Little's Law to estimate there are 45 shoppers in the store at any time. It says Little's Law can be applied to any store, such as the particular department or checkout lines. Store owner determines that during peak business hours or during business hours, 84 shoppers per hour. That's a red flag to me. Okay, why is it a red flag? I'm going to put a red flag there. Right, red flag. Because it says 84 shoppers per hour, and I know Little's Law was dealing in per minutes. Okay, if I go up, it says Little's Law is dealing in R shoppers per minute. Okay, I'm going to put a big star next to that. So we're going to have to convert that from per hour to per minute. Make a purchase, and each of these shoppers spends an average of 5 minutes in the checkout line. Okay, that's good. That's in minutes. That's all set. At any time during business hours, about how many shoppers on average are waiting in the checkout line to make a purchase at the Good Deals store? Well, we got to take our 84 shoppers per hour. So I'm going to put S per H for shoppers per hour. And we're going to have to divide that by that 60 minutes per hour, right? Or multiply by 1 hour per 60 minutes, okay, in order to cancel those hours out. So we cancel the hours. That's going to give us 84 S over 60M, okay, 84 S over 60M for shoppers per minute. Okay, we plug that in our calculator, 84 over 60, that's going to give us 1.4. Okay, so we have 1.4 shoppers per minute, so that's R, that's our rate. Okay, now we have to multiply that by our time to get how many shoppers are waiting in the line to make a purchase at any given moment. Okay, so we multiply it by this 5 minutes here. So we're going to have 1.4 as R. We can go take a look at Little's Law if you need a refresh on that. I'll bring it up here. We see it's N equals R times T. We know R is 1.4. We multiply it by that 5T. Okay, and that's going to give us 7. 1.4 times 5 gives us 7. So our answer there will be 7. So as far as where you could have gone wrong here, okay, I want to help you understand where you could have gone wrong. Okay, so the big thing was understanding that that was 84 shoppers per hour. Okay, I marked that as a red flag because that's something where you could go wrong because R needs to be per minute according to Little's Law. The other thing, right down here, we had to make sure this was in minutes. In this case, it was, right? And I'll switch to blue so you can see where I'm talking. Right here, that was in 5 minutes. We wanted to make sure we paid attention to that. Other than that, it was really, after that, just making sure we're paying attention to what we're asked, right? How many shoppers on average are waiting in the checkout line to make a purchase? Okay, that's just using Little's Law at that point. So it's really making sure we pay attention to the units there. Okay, units are important. Another tip, you saw me canceling units, right? That's something that I think can be a very, very helpful strategy if you struggle with word problems like these, is using units to cancel, because then you can make sure you end in the right units, right? We saw we had 1.4 shoppers per minute, and then we were multiplying by 5 minutes. So if we're going to do that, we'd have shoppers per minute times 5 minutes. Okay, we'd see our minutes would cancel, and we're left with 7 shoppers. Okay, so using units to cancel can help you make sure that you end with the correct answer, because if your end answer has the correct units, then you probably did it right. Okay, so if you end with the right units, you probably did the problem right. In this case, we ended with shoppers, which is what we needed to end with, so that was perfect. So that's another tip that you can use there. All right, now we got question 38. So the owner of Good Deals store opens a new store across town. For the new store, the owner estimates that during business hours, an average of 90 shoppers per hour. Okay, once again, pay attention to that per hour. I'll put another red flag there, okay, because we want to pay attention to that. Enter the store, and each of them stays an average of 12 minutes. So that's our time. It's in minutes, so that's good. The average number of shoppers in the new store at any time is what % less? Okay, so this is what we're asked to answer with. It's what % less than the average number of shoppers in the original store at any time. And then we have a note, ignore the % symbol when entering your answer. All right, so the average number of shoppers in the new store, let's go ahead and start there. So we have 90 shoppers per hour, so 90 shoppers per hour. I'll switch back to black because that's a thinner pen for me. You can see it better. So we have 90 shoppers per hour, and then we have 12 minutes, right? So that's our time is 12 minutes. So we have to convert first the shoppers per hour into shoppers per minute. So we're going to multiply by 1 hour over 60 minutes to cancel that unit of 1 hour. Okay, so we have 90 shoppers per 60 minutes. So that's going to be 90 over 60, right? And that's shoppers per minute. 90 over 60 is 1.5, so we're going to have 1.5 shoppers per minute. Okay, that's our rate. We multiply our rate by times then, or by time, since that's Little's Law, so we're going to have 1.5 shoppers per minute multiplied by, it says it's 12 minutes. Okay, our minutes are going to cancel. 1.5 times 12 will leave us with 18 shoppers. 18 shoppers. Okay, now we have to ask, or we have to answer what we're asked, which is to find the percent less that this new store is having than the number in the original store at any time. Okay, so to do this, what we do is we use the equation new minus old over old. Okay, that's how we find that percent change. In this case, it's a decrease. So that's how we're going to find the percent change. We know our new is 18 shoppers. So we're going to have an 18 minus our old, which if we go back to our word problem, I'll put it in blue so you can see it, or I'll highlight it. Okay, we see that there were 45 shoppers in the store at any time. Okay, so that's the old store. There were 45 shoppers. Okay, so we're going to take that. That's our old number then. So we go over here. We see we have 18 minus our old number, which was 45. And we set it over our old number again. Okay, so 18 minus 45. We'll put that in our calculator. Okay, that gives us negative 27. And then we do that divided by 45. And that gives us negative 0.6. Okay, so that means we have a 60% decrease in our traffic at this, or our people at this new store, okay? So that negative 0.6 means we have a 60% decrease. Now keep in mind, we know that we can't answer with a negative on the fill in the blank section because there is no negative fill in as of January 2021. So as far as this, we know that we're just going to enter in, we're asked for the percent decrease, right? I'll erase that so you can see it better, and then I'll go back. Okay, we see that it says percent less than the average number of those in the original store at any time. So since we're answering with a percent less, we have to convert that negative 0.6 to a percent, which just means it's going to be a decrease of 60%. We know we don't include the percent sign or a negative sign because it's assumed it's a decrease. Also, you can't even put in a negative sign. So we know our answer then will just be 60. Okay, so answer for 38 there is going to be 60. So hopefully that was helpful. A couple big takeaways I want you to take away from the Math with Calculator free response section is a couple things. Number one, questions are generally going to get progressively harder from 31 to 38. Number two, questions 31 to 35 are generally going to be easier than what you'll see in 24 to 30 of the multiple choice section. The other things are to make sure that if you're dealing with things that have 3 digits or have pi in them, make sure you're using a calculator, because if you have 3 digits and you try to do it mentally, it's quite possible you can make an error. So you're going to want to use your calculator there just to make sure that you're staying safe with your answers. The other thing is, if you're dealing with a question with pi, make sure you're using the pi button and not 3.14, just in case there's anything with rounding. Using pi is what I would recommend on your calculator. And I would say that those are pretty much the big things. Okay, the other big things are just making sure you're paying close attention to details such as rates and what you're asked to answer with at the end of your sentences. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and switch over to our other section. All right, let's get started with the writing section for today. So today I'll be taking you through the last 2 passages of SAT Practice Test 6. I'll be completing problems or questions 23 to 44. I'll be giving you my tips, tricks, advice, and strategies that I use for the SAT writing section so that you can implement them yourself. So I'll be really trying to break down how to get to the correct answer choice, and then once you're there, I'll go ahead and break down why incorrect answers are incorrect, so that way I can teach you grammar rules. So really, at this point in time, still trying to focus on teaching grammar rules, how to be accurate, how to get to the right answer, and strategy. So really a big focus on strategy. Not too worried about pacing yet. We'll worry more about teaching pacing next week or in a couple weeks from now. But for now, we're really focused on accuracy still. Probably by day 50 is when we'll probably start working with pacing, right? So probably 45 to 50, somewhere in there is when we're going to start worrying more about pacing. But for now, we're still teaching accuracy. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So we have the physician assistant will see you now. The term paramedics refers to healthcare workers who provide routine and clinical services. I'm asked for the best introduction. In order to know the best introduction, I'm going to have to read on in order to find what should go there. So we have, well, the pressures of an aging population, insurance reforms, and health epidemics have increased demand for care. The supply of physicians is not expected to keep pace. Okay, right here, I see I have other options that all kind of deal with keeping pace. So I see that this is really a tone question, finding what best matches the tone of the passage as a whole. Okay, and keep in mind for most sections on the SAT writing section, you want to maintain an academic tone. In this case, keep pace is perfect, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Maintain the tempo, that's wordy. Okay, that's wordy and inconcise. We don't want to say that. Get in line, that's also wordy. Also, that's really not very clear as to what we're talking about there. Get in line, it doesn't really apply itself well here. And then move along, once again, that's casual and kind of slang. We wouldn't say that in an academic setting. Okay, so that does not match our academic tone. So D is incorrect as well. All right, the Association of American Medical Colleges predicts a shortage of over 90,000 physicians by 2020. By 2025, that number could climb to more than 130,000. In some parts of the country, shortages are already a sad fact of life. A 2009 report by the Bureau of Health Professions notes that although a fifth of the U.S. population lives in rural areas, less than a tenth of U.S. physicians serves that population. Because a traditionalist response to the crisis, and then I have one word or two words after this, right? And I see my other options are all different words, so I know I'm dealing with a tone question once again. So I need to determine which word best fits the tone of the passage and also fits the meaning of the sentence, okay? So because of traditional response to the crisis, now we're describing what that traditional response is. So amping up, that's really kind of slang. It's not fitting our academic tone, so that's incorrect, okay? Bolstering medical college enrollments, yes, that's perfect, right? It's maintaining our academic tone and it's showing that we want to support these medical college enrollments and expanding physician training programs, right? We wouldn't say arousing because that is definitely not applicable here. De-revving up, that's slang or too casual, so that also doesn't fit our academic tone. So 25 there is going to be B. Is too slow and costly to address the near-term problem. Alternatives are being explored. One promising avenue has been greater reliance on physician assistants. All right, so with that, we've gone ahead and we've read that paragraph. Now we can go back up to 25 or 23 and answer what the best introduction is. Okay, so really what we're talking about throughout there is how we're going to see a shortage of physicians, right? A shortage of physicians. Okay, so we're going to have a shortage of physicians, and how are we going to combat that problem? Okay, so that's really what we're talking about there. So A, the term paramedics, in defining that, that's not a good introduction because we're talking about a shortage of doctors or physicians. B, for many Americans, finding a physician is likely to become a growing challenge. Yes, that fits in our topic of our shortage of physicians. So B is absolutely correct for 23. As far as C, getting treatment for an illness usually requires seeing a general practitioner. No, that's not what we're talking about. D, worldwide, the costs of healthcare are increasing. That's not what we're talking about either. So D is incorrect. Okay, so now we are moving down. We are on question 26 at this point. Okay, at this point, the writer is considering adding a sentence. Several factors argue in favor of such an expanded role. If I'm ever asked about adding a sentence or keeping a sentence or anything with a sentence at the beginning of my paragraph, what I always want to think is how is it transitioning from the previous paragraph to this paragraph, and is it introducing what's to come in this paragraph? So those are the two big things I look for anytime I have a word or a sentence, not a word, anytime I have a sentence that is asked if I should add or keep it or delete it at the beginning of a paragraph. Does it transition well from the previous paragraph, and does it introduce what's to come in this paragraph? Okay, so several factors argue in favor of such an expanded role. I know in my previous paragraph I talked about an expanded role for physician assistants. Now, once again, I'm linking that over here to several factors. So let's see if I go on to say several factors. We have by virtue of their medical training, PAs. Okay, their is referring to PAs. The correct form of their would be THEIR. This is a homophone question. So correct answer there is going to be C. Okay, so C for 27. All right, now we've got, by virtue of their medical training, PAs can perform many of the jobs traditionally done by doctors, including treating chronic and acute conditions, performing minor surgeries. Okay, this needs to be a comma here, comma, and prescribing some medications. Okay, that's a list of things that they do, and in the list we have a comma before that last and. Okay, we don't have a comma after and. We don't use a semicolon with that list. Correct answer there is going to be D for 28. All right, so now we can go back up. We've got, however, although well compensated, earning in 2012 a median salary of $90,000. Okay, I know that that's a non-essential phrase or clause, so I'm going to put NE there. How do I know that? Well, this well compensated is referring to these physician assistants. So what it should say is although well compensated, and then something to indicate that this is right here, right? This right here from that there to right here is non-essential. I need something to do that. So I could use two commas to do it, or I could use two parentheses or two em dashes. But either way, this right here is my non-essential phrase or clause, so I need something setting that off, okay? Because if I take it out, it would read, however, although well-compensated, physician assistants cost healthcare providers less than do the physicians, right? And that really could be a sentence on its own. So I know this earning in 2012 a median salary of $90,000 is non-essential. So I got to get it offset with commas or with parentheses somehow. So let's look at our options. No change, it didn't have that, so that's wrong. B, we see we use parentheses to do it, and then we have a comma after it. Yes, okay, we do need a comma after it as well, and I'm going to show you why here. If we say although well compensated, that's a dependent clause. A dependent clause has to have a comma after it. So the best way to do this would be to use those parentheses, right? Use parentheses, and then have that comma after it, okay? Because that gets that dependent clause, it has to have that comma after it, and then we're indicating the non-essential part in parentheses. So that works perfectly. That's the best answer choice, and that is the correct answer choice there. So B will be our answer for 29. All right, so now that we've read that paragraph, we can go back up and answer whether we should add this, okay? So we already know that it transitioned well, but did it introduce what was to come? Yes, because we do discuss several factors that are arguing in favor of that expanded role. So not only did it transition well, but it also introduced what was to come in the paragraph. So yes, we should make this addition here. Okay, so let's look at our options. Yes, because it introduces a counter argument. No, that's not what we want to add it. B, yes, because it frames the point that the paragraph will examine. Yes, when we say frames the point the paragraph will examine, that's really saying it makes that claim or introduces what the paragraph is going to explain. So yes, B is absolutely correct for 26. B for 26. All right, so now we've got our next page at this point. We've got might otherwise undertake these tasks. Moreover, the training period for PAs is markedly shorter than that for physicians. How did I know it had to be that? Okay, well, when we say something is markedly shorter, or we're comparing two things, right here we're comparing the training period. Okay, the training period. We know that that's singular. Singular. Okay, there's only one training period, right? The training period, it's singular. So it's markedly shorter than that training period for physicians. So that for physicians. So answer there is going to be C. Okay, those would be plural. Okay, so if training periods, if it was periods, then it would have to be those. Okay, but since it's training periods singular, it has to be that. As far as why it's not that compared with, we know it's being compared with it already because of the word than, so we wouldn't say that compared with, so B is incorrect, because that would be redundant saying compared with. A is obviously incorrect because it uses those, and D is incorrect as well. So correct answer for 30 there is going to be C. All right, we got 31. That looks like it's way down somewhere. All right, so we've got physician assistants already offer vital primary care in many locations. Some 90,000 PAs were employed nationwide in 2012, over and above their value, and partially compensating for the general physician storage has been their extraordinary contribution to rural health care. A recent review of the scholarly literature by Texas researchers found that PAs lend cost-efficient, widely appreciated services in underserved areas. Okay, so now I have two words or one word with a comma after it, right? Anytime I have that, I'm always looking to transition or link my two sentences, the one that came before and then that current one as well. Okay, so we have rural-based PAs often provide a broader spectrum of such services than do their urban and suburban counterparts, possibly a consequence of the limited pool of rural-based physicians. All right, well, before that, I was talking about them being cost-efficient, okay, them being cost-efficient for these underserved areas. Now I'm saying not only are they cost-efficient, but they also are providing a broader spectrum of services. Okay, so that's something that is in addition to being cost efficient. So that's going to be A. That's the best transition there because we're talking about something that is in addition to what came before it. So that's perfect. Okay, we wouldn't want to say anything else. We wouldn't say thus because that would show a causal relationship and there is none. We wouldn't say despite this because it's in addition to it. We wouldn't say on the other hand because it's on the same hand and in addition. Okay, so 31 answer there is going to be A. All right, let's just make sure we've got all of ours so far for this section. We see that we do, so we can go ahead and keep on rolling. So now we've got 32. Increasingly, PAs and other such medical practitioners have become a critical complement to physicians. A 2013 RAND Corporation report estimates that while the number of primary care physicians will increase slowly from 2010 to 2025, the number of physician assistants and nurse practitioners in primary care will grow at much faster rates. At this point, I'm asked if I should add a sentence. Anytime I'm asked if I should add a sentence, I want to know what comes before it and what comes after it. So I have both by merit and from necessity, PAs are more likely or are likely to greet more patients. This is the wrong patients. That's a homophone question. Okay, patients when we're talking about a doctor is spelled this way. Okay, the patients that they wrote here is referring to patients as in waiting. Okay, right here, this is the kind that doctors see. So we can go ahead and get rid of A and B because they use the wrong patients. Okay, next, once again, we have a homophone question for C and D. Okay, the correct version of than is than with an A. Okay, because that's comparing. We use this than to compare. We use then for a sequence, right? Saying one thing came after the other. Okay, in this case, we're comparing two things, right? We're comparing the number of patients PAs see now or in the future to before. Okay, so we're going to use D. D will be our correct answer for 33. Okay, now we can go back up and we can answer 32 now that we've read that sentence that comes after. Okay, so we're really talking about how we have physicians. In the sentence before, we talk about physicians the number of physician assistants is going to grow at a faster rate. Then we talk about how this is by merit and necessity. Physician assistants are likely to greet more patients than ever before. Our sentence here says, in fact, according to the data presented in the table, physician assistants will likely outnumber physicians by 2025. Now, here's the thing with data questions. You can't just read this and not look at the data because sometimes the data won't support the statement that they make. Okay, so you always have to check if it's if it's logical, right? If it works or if it's supported by the data first, okay? So if I take a look at the data saying physician assistants will outnumber physicians by 2025, I see I have physicians in 2025 here and I have physician assistants here. I see that physician assistants do not outnumber physicians by 2025, so that's incorrect according to the data, so I cannot add it. So should the writer make the addition? No, because it is not an accurate interpretation of the data. So correct answer for 32 is going to have to be C. It's not correct according to the data. So we cannot add it because it's not true. All right, so now we've got 33, already answered that. Now we're on to our last passage here. All right, so we've got gold into silver, the reverse alchemy of superhero comics history. I'm asked to combine these sentences. Anytime I'm asked to combine sentences, one thing I'm going to do, first thing is I'm going to read this. Okay, I'm going to read this. Then after that, what I always do is I always move in my answer choices from shortest to longest. Okay, so I'm going to look for my shortest one. I see that shortest one's really not much shorter than the others. It's pretty much probably this one is shortest, this one's second shortest, this one's third shortest, and then A is going to be fourth shortest. So that's the order I'm going to move in those. So I'll go ahead and read this. Popular film franchises are often rebooted in an effort to make characters and stories fresh and relevant for new audiences. Superhero comic books are periodically reworked to try to increase their appeal to contemporary readers. Okay, those two are similar ideas, so I'm going to look for something that connects them, says that they're similar, something like that. But also I want to make sure it's grammatically correct and sequentially correct. So we have option D, superhero comics are much like popular film franchises, so that's showing that they're similar like I wanted to do, and being often rebooted in an effort to make characters and stories fresh and relevant for new audience and periodically reworked to try to increase their appeal to contemporary readers. All right, well that is not correct, and here's why. So when we say that superhero comic books are much like popular film franchises and being often rebooted, we would never say and being often rebooted. We would just say and being rebooted, okay? Or really, that's just really, really wordy, okay? Anytime you see something that's wordy and you just think, man, that's not efficient in word choice, it's not concise, it's going to be wrong, okay? We would never say like popular film franchises and being often rebooted, okay? That's very, very wordy. We wouldn't want to say this sequence of words here, and being often rebooted, okay? So that's wrong there. So that's wordy. So let's go look at our number 2 option. Just as popular film franchises are often rebooted in an effort to make their characters and stories fresh and relevant for new audiences, superhero comic books are periodically reworked to try to increase their appeal to contemporary readers. Okay, this one's perfect. And another thing I want to touch on with D as to why it's wrong is it's not really making that connection between those comic books and the film franchises very well. Okay, they put them too close together and they don't really show which belongs to which, right? Which stories are fresh, which ones are trying to increase the appeal to contemporary readers. They have those two words, those superhero comic books and popular film franchises, too close there. Okay, if we look up top, we have just as popular film franchises are often rebooted in an effort to make their characters and stories fresh and relevant for new audiences. That's showing the connection between film franchises and what they're doing. Now we're showing that with what superhero comic books and what they're doing. So that right there is sequentially logical. Right, I talked about a little bit earlier how I want to see when I combine sentences that it moves in a logical order. This one does. It's also very efficient. There is no repetition or redundancy. It's grammatically correct. So B would be my correct answer there. That is question 34. All right, so then we can go ahead and get rid of A and C. We know that they're either going to be wordy or don't follow a sequential order or aren't grammatically correct or something like that. All right, so now we've got question 35, it looks like. So we've got this practice is almost as elderly as the medium itself. We would never say something's elderly as the medium itself. We would say it's as old as the medium itself. Okay, that one is a tone question. This is a tone question or a word choice question. We would never say that something is elderly as the medium itself or mature or geriatric. We would say it's as old as the medium itself because that fits our academic tone. Now we've got 36. It looks like it's a punctuation and apostrophe question. So we have the shift from the gold and the silver age is probably the most successful example of publishers responding to changing times and tastes. We don't need anything here, okay? The example of publishers, we want to keep that together. That's one noun phrase, right? We have example of publishers. So of publishers is a prepositional phrase. I want to keep that connected to example. I don't want anything splitting it up, okay? I put parentheses there just to show you it was a prepositional phrase. I don't actually want parentheses there. I want nothing there. So I want to get rid of that. So it should just say examples of publishers with nothing there. So 36, answer there should just be D. Right, now we've got question 37. Let's go down, take a look at it. Which choice is most consistent with the previous examples in the sentence? I need to know those examples. So we have the start of the first golden age comic books dated 1938 with the debut of Superman in action. Besides beginning the age, Superman in many respects defined it, becoming the model with which the later superheroes were based. His characterization, as established in Superman 1, was relatively simple. He could hurdle skyscrapers, leap an eighth of a mile, run faster than a streamlined train, withstand anything less than a bursting shell, and lift a car over his head. Okay, that's a parallelism question. Correct answer there is going to be no change, and here's why. What I look for when I have a parallelism question like this: what is my tense of my verbs? I see I have hurdle, leap, run, bursting, lift, and withstand. All of those are present tense, so that's perfect. Also, all of those, what are they doing? They're all describing his superhuman capabilities, right? Running faster than a train, withstanding anything less than a bursting shell, lifting a car over his head. All of those are superhuman things. I look at answer choice B. That's not superhuman. Being a newspaper reporter, not superhuman. Wearing a costume, not superhuman. Living in Metropolitus, not superhuman. So answer for 37 has to be D. We have to fit that parallelism there. Okay. In that case, it was more parallelism of ideas than parallelism of verb tense. All right, so I believe we've got all of those so far. Let's just run back and check. We go back, see we've got all of them answered. And I see that looks like we do. Okay, good, so we can keep on moving. All right, so we are on question 38 now. I'll just go ahead and quick read through this. Sent to Earth from the doomed planet Krypton, he was raised by foster parents whose influence helped him decide to benefit mankind. Admirable but aloof. Golden Age Superman was arguably more paragon than character. A problem only partially solved by his human alter ego. Other Golden Age superheroes were similarly archetypal. Batman was a crime-fighting millionaire. Wonder Woman a warrior princess from a mythical island. Okay, now I'm asked for what's setting up the idea of the main idea of the following sentences, so I need to read that. By contrast, the second Silver Age of comics was marked by characters that, though somewhat simplistic by today's standards, we've got no really direction. Okay, we do. Setting up the following two sentences of examples. All right, so we have in addition to supervillains, the new soon-to-be iconic characters of the age. All right, age here. I'm looking at, I see I have an M dash here, so I know I'm probably going to want to have one here because we're probably setting off this list. Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and the Hulk among them. Yes, I see I am setting off that list, so I need to match it with that M dash, right? That being non-essential phrase. The characters of the age had to cope with mundane. Okay, we could get rid of this and it would still make sense. We know it's non-essential, in which case we got to match this M dash here with one up here. So answer for 39 there is going to have to be D. So we go ahead and answer that. And then we look at our next thing. We talk about coping with real-life problems, paying rent, family squabbles, anger, loneliness, ostracism, interior lives richer than the motivations, complex. So what choice is setting up those examples in those sentences? Well, saying that they involved scientific experiments gone wrong is not. We're really talking about them being realistic, right? Them being more commonplace superheroes. B, reflecting increasing conservatism. We never touch on politics. B is incorrect. C, engaged in bizarre adventures frequently inspired by science fiction. Never touch on that. That's incorrect. D, they were more realistic than Golden Age's counterparts. Absolutely. We talk about them being newspaper reporters, right? Dealing with rent, dealing with loneliness, family squabbles, things like that. So D would be our correct answer for 38. All right, so now we are on 40. So we've got the writer wants a conclusion to the sentence and paragraph that logically completes the discussion of the Silver Age. Okay, so we need to complete that discussion of the Silver Age or end it. That's an important part. Next, we want to provide in a transition to the next paragraph what choice accomplishes these goals. We can't answer this till we know what our next paragraph's about. So we're going to go down here. We have more transformations would take place in the medium as the Silver Age gave way to the Bronze and Modern and possibly postmodern ages. So we're talking about the ages that come after it. Such efforts have yielded diminishing returns. Okay, right there, have yielded, that's a question on tense, right? And that is the correct tense. Have yielded is correct. We wouldn't say will yield or were yielding or would have yielded. Correct answer for tense is have yielded, right? Such efforts have yielded diminishing returns. Hang on, I lost my place a minute. All right, so we've got such efforts have yielded diminishing returns, even as the complete relaunch of DC Comics superheroes. Okay, superheroes doesn't own anything, so there's no apostrophe there. So we got to get rid of it there. So we can go ahead and get rid of A, B, and C, and we see our answer there is going to be D for 42. As always, I always recommend you just answer them as you come by them if you need to read more for context. All right, so now we can, at this point, pretty much go back and answer 40, question 40. So we know that at that point we're talking about the heroes of this age past the Silver Age, right? So this new postmodern age. So we want something that wraps up the Silver Age and introduces us possibly into the next ages. So option A says subsequent decades would show the enduring appeal of these characters. No, we want to talk about the end of the Silver Age and transition into the New Ages. B, the distinctions between later stages of comic book history are less well defined than the ones between Golden and Silver Ages. No. Also, that doesn't show us the end of the Silver Age, so B is incorrect. C, readers increasingly gravitated to the upstarts of the 1960s. Okay, so that's talking about the next age. And the Silver Age drew to a close. Yes, that's perfect. We're closing that Silver Age. We're talking about the next generation gravitating towards those books of the 1960s. So C would be our correct answer for 40. Okay, because it's wrapping up or completing that discussion of the Silver Age that we talk about up here. Okay, and then we're transitioning into that next paragraph. All right, down here we are on 43. For both commercial and arguably creative reasons, okay, right here I've got a word, clearly since it's between two commas here, obviously it's non-essential. Now, as far as for both commercial and arguably creative reasons, if I see I have a word like this and I see all of them are transition words, I know I'm looking for a word to connect an idea before it with the idea after it. So I want to know what the idea after it is. So before it, we're talking about for commercial and arguably creative reasons. We see no transition was more successful than that from the Golden to Silver Age. Okay. So no transition being more successful than that one for commercial and creative reasons. That's not a contrast, so B is incorrect. However, would be if we're contrasting and we're not. C, yet, that would be pretty much a hesitation was something before it, right? Or we had a problem with something, and we don't have that, so D is incorrect. Nevertheless, that also doesn't fit here. We would say for commercial and creative reasons then, right? As a result of those reasons, or not as a result necessarily, but actually, yes, as a result, right? For both of these reasons, as a result of those reasons, using those reasons, then no transition was more successful. Okay, so A, no change is our answer there for 43. All right, so that takes us through 43. 44, I already said it was going to be that. How did I know that? Let's cover that. So for both commercial and arguably creative reasons, then, no transition was more successful than that from the Golden to Silver Age. Okay, that is referring to transition. Okay, right here, whatever this is, right, that's referring to transition. Transition is singular, and since it's singular, we have to use that because those is plural. So correct answer there is going to be C for 44. All right, so as always, hopefully that was helpful. If it was, there's a donation link in the description, or at least there will be when it's up and running. Any private SAT tutoring I'm doing will be linked in the description. Any private college admissions consulting I'm doing will be linked in the description. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and have a good day.